be honest. It was buffalo grass, skinny grass, howley-cod, about head high this whole way. And we came in here and I got a good group of students, and so we do that a section at a time until we could actually see. And a couple times weed whacking in here, so during the summer stuff just grows, especially if we have rain, especially the weedy plants. And I found previous fruit trees that the previous garden coordinator planted that you couldn't even see. You didn't even know they were there. Yeah, and I just found so many interesting things. I'll show you the far side in a little bit, but we found the most obscure and weirdest things you could imagine. We found a pair of jeans, like tight-fitting black children jeans. In the back corner over there, we found a toy wooden train set. We found about 60 DVDs for how to educate your child in preschool, just in the field. There was the most obscure stuff we found over there. But this is the intermediate garden. This is to me, this is my most pristine and most developed garden, just because it was such a blank canvas, and once that was finished, there was just so much room to expand and grow on it. So in the intermediate school, they came out every week. Every Friday is what we had for this school. What was very unique about this school was the challenges in how to create a plan for what you're going to do that day with the students. Just because at this school, it was kind of like a lottery system for who came out. And so I have 6 through 8 here, and whichever teacher signed up for that particular class is who could come out, and they had a particular day. Sometimes I'd have it where I'd have one teacher for the entire day. Those are great days. I had some time where I'd have 4 teachers in one day. Some days I would have 2 teachers. Some days I'd have all classes were different teachers, but I would have the same student in every different class that entire day.
Wow.
So they'd get the same lecture over and over and over again, which was interesting to find how to either develop on it or have them do something different and not be something I was going to cover the following Friday if they did come out. So this garden was its own creature, for sure. Not to mention, middle school is a very challenging age. A lot of them are going through a lot of changes. So finding a way to get something to interest them or to click in their head, it was a challenge. So did the best I could, and we'll have a lot of really awesome kids at the school garden that just found something they're so intrigued in the garden that I think they're gonna continue with it later on in life. I had a really great experience. We have mulch in the garden. We have the tree trimmers that come up and they would deliver every once in a while, and we'd get a huge pile. I'm just talking a massive pile of wood chips, and when we were spreading them, they started to notice that there's heat being generated on the inside of the pile, and they're just like, what is this? Why is it so hot? And I was like, what do you think about that? Why do you think it's so hot? And it's like, oh, it's because it's the sun. And it's like, yeah, it contributes to it. And when I explained to them that there's microorganisms that when they metabolize, they generate tons of heat, and they were just blown away. They thought this was just some form of magic that a pile of something could get that hot. And I told them, I was like, well, dig a small hole as far as you can to the center and hold your hand in there and see how long you can. See how hot it is inside there. Because because they didn't believe. And I mean, once you see steam coming out the center when you dig into the core of it, they're just like, I'm not gonna hold my hand in there. And I'm like, okay, well, you're smart then, good, because I let them know that the pile can be up to 160, 180 degrees in the center. That's all generated from a fungus, a microorganism that creates heat. This is a specific role in its life. And so there's always, in this garden in particular, there's always a great time to capitalize on a gardening point, because there's so many weird random events that happen that can just be turned around into something educational. From the compost pile to inside this the row section, which we'll walk over and check out, we have these unique shaped beds inside there, and we had them, I educated the kids on orientation, and when we were designing the garden, and they were just so interested in why would we shape the garden this way. And I talked about water, because water, like I said in the last one, is the most important. So establishing a water dominant garden is very important. And we went over hydrology in this garden. As to the best of my knowledge, I didn't go to school for hydrology, but I know at least several basic principles, and I was talking to them about how water is always going to go to where it's level, no matter what. It's always going to go to level. And so we made contour beds in this garden. And contour just means it's a level line or squiggle going across the topography. And in that, we make the beds along that line, and it holds the water whenever it rains at level, and that water can sink in. Once it sinks in, it continuously goes at a 45-degree angle till it reaches the ocean, which is its level where we are. And I was explaining to them hypothetically, if by those pallets right there, if that was where the rain hit and sunk in right there, and by our sugarcane was 45 degrees below that, we would have water welling right here. That's just how the water cycle works for hydrology in a very basic sense. There's a lot more intricate things about Minnesai and all this stuff and how water moves and adheres. But we went into that, and they were just like, well, I can draw one. We don't need this tool, mister. I can draw a contour line on the garden area. And every student that came out, it was always a straight line. Straight line. And I was like, well, what makes that level? It's because it's straight. I was like, okay, well, let's check it out. And so I have a funky little tool. It's called an A-frame contour level. It's just, it looks just like an A. And on the bar that connects the two legs of the A, I have a level taped to it. And so when you have one foot and another foot touching, you pivot one edge, and you find to where that bubble meets right in the center. And so I let them find contour levels, and so in there we'll go and check it out. But they're not straight. That's for sure. They're very, very, very squiggly and unorthodox. Like it was all contoured the same, that you just have constant curves, but it just between such a small area, the contour is very different. So this school garden differs a lot from the other school garden. This school garden is definitely had a heavy emphasis on nutritional science. The most predominant teacher that I had come out was the health and nutrition teacher, and so I capitalized on that a lot, because we could grow the stuff in the garden. they could cook it back in their class because we had more facility to do so. But we divulged into how different plants have different nutritional compositions and how each one is developed better in the body than, say, processed food, which all these kids love eating their Takis and all their horrible flaming hot Cheetos. But we got them. We had a huge radish crop, and it's really fun watching the kids eat raw radish. There's the kids that love it, and there's the kids that they take a huge bite and they're just like, it's too spicy, and they just spit it out instantly. It was, and so I have them do that, but I also had them take some home to cook it to see how it changed, because it removes the spice when you cook it somewhat, and it was just always awesome. This school garden, we had an amazing watermelon production. Amazing watermelon, some of the best watermelons I think I've ever tried.
Wow.
Yeah. I think they were sugar babies because they're smaller. The sugar, they did amazing. I had no issues with fruit flies at all. Not until the very end. Just recently, all the watermelons that were left over. Every time I was ready to harvest them, because you wait until you can tap them and they sound hollow. And every time I tap them, I was like, oh, it sounds a little too hollow. Like the following week after, I was like, it was perfectly hollow, and I was like, okay. And I come out and I tap it, and then I tap just a little too hard, and my finger goes right through, and it was just completely rotten. And since we have all this buffalo grass and stuff everywhere, it holds a large population of field mice. And they'd come up and they'd scratch a little bit, and that would let the smell out, I think, is my hypothesis. And so it allowed fruit flies to come in and just demolish it. But we had amazing watermelon production. The kids were just like, oh my God, I want more watermelons. And so I was like, well, we've got to plant more. That's what we got to do. So just like the other garden, we went over pollinators and decomposers. But in this school garden, we could go into much more depth because they're a lot more mentally capable with understanding principles of certain things. So we went into a lot more depth on class, order, phylum, all the different possibilities that you could go into that's not a college level class. So we did a lot of companion planting in this garden and a lot of experimenting. So in this one, a lot of the cucumbers have kind of completely died out, which is nice. But we had these funky yellow cucumbers. They're for pickling. Here's a small one that's but
that one's
it was a experiment to see if you could plant one plant directly inside of a cover crop. Because this is a white clover, and I mean, it's a nitrogen fixer, so it's great for soil rebuilding and also holding in water moisture. But would it outcompete the plant that you wanted to grow? And of course, we put a trellis up for the cucumbers, and the cucumbers don't want anything to do with the trellis. Of course, they all just they're literally just all on the ground, and that was a factor that probably prevented a lot of them from growing, because as soon as you get contact with soil, any sort of opening on it makes it rotten.
A lot of them would just like be on top of the clover.
Yeah, a lot of them would just sit right on top of the clover.
So maybe they expended less energy climbing and they were able to produce instead.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, what thing I think saved them, because we do have a thing called pickle worm here that literally just takes out every melon you can imagine. They come in at night and just leave a little caterpillar, and it just destroys it. Like right as you think it's ready to go, it's rotten because it.
Does that also affect zucchini?
Yeah, zucchini. Yes.
Yeah.
The
one you're talking about.
Yeah. What I think saved it is these things have exceptionally thick skin because they're pickling cucumbers. So that might have been a contributing factor to keeping them alive. But so in this garden we have so many different things going on. No, that's a pumpkin. Yeah.
Surprised all the neighborhood cats aren't up over here.
right with the catnip. Yeah,
It's the most amazing pumpkin ever.
he said they haven't had cats.
It's
I used to grow it and I sold it actually. You know, I used to make my own Lahaina catnip.
Oh yeah.
You know, you dry it up and people would come and buy it and then take it home and the cats would go crazy.
I grow it, but I have it up right off my lanai in a container so the cats don't roll in it because
They love rolling in it.
they do.
But
Surprised there aren't any up here. That's why you don't have a rat problem at all.
well, the catnip.
Yeah.
So we played a lot with companion planting up here. They're really good pollinators. Not to mention they keep rats away. That's just what they're.
Oh yeah, the catnip.
Okay, I got to get some then for my plate.
But then would they bring
I'm swimming in rats. So the water. Surprised with watermelons didn't get sweetie watermelons. The rats ate them.
Yeah.
As soon as they would.
But so we had a like I said, the most
all
predominant
around.
teacher that came out with a health and nutrition teacher, and he and his students were very open at talking about human function. And so I talked to them about medicinal properties in particular plants and how catnip is very beneficial for women during a particular period of time. And I had a handful of the I had a handful of students take some home and try turning it into a tea when they had that particular moment, and how free does it remove contractions, right?
It can help.
It helps. It's not a sedative.
Alleviate.
What is the? It's kind of like a sedative, so it's good for getting to sleep at night. You know, like a little catnip tea.
Analgesic, that's there.
And it does it gets rid of cramps.
So I had them take some of that home and try that out. Cool. Yeah. Also, they have kids that have cats, and I was just like, "Well, take it home and see what your cats."
Yeah, the cats. Not all cats love it, but
Not all
most
cats
do.
love it.
Yeah, it's a certain receptor in only certain cats.
So, like I said, eggplants.
Look at
The
all
plant
the
that
flowers.
does great in Lahaina, especially this one. This is the long green and long purple.
Okay.
And these ones have done amazing. Let me see if I can find you a massive one here.
Long green, long fur. This is perfect. Catnip around it.
Yeah. Well, that was our experiment for this one was to see. It's kind of little.
The interplanting.
Yeah, to see the interplanting and how well one plant can help another plant.
Yeah, exactly. This will be a winner of it because we have a rat problem like crazy up there. It's the big killer ladybug.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, not to mention having the interplanting, but it also brought in so many. So this is just a smaller one. That one can be harvested.
Oh, we got a big.
I get aphid hunting. We have
grasshopper.
plenty of aphids to go after.
And I love the meandering. I love that.
Like that's.
Oh, here's another one.
All she
Oh, they're
wrote.
everywhere. Look at that.
Yeah, we have tons and tons here. So there's
Oh,
just
is
there's
it
a smaller
ladybugs?
one.
Oh, thank you.
Did you tell
They're
them about the
they're
vetiver?
massive when they come out of the garden.
I bet. It's a huge.
What was that?
Did you say anything about the
Oh, I have
vetiver?
not
Vetiver.
said anything about the vetiver yet.
Oh,
So
Good.
we did a lot of interesting plantings in this garden, just to be different than what a conventional garden would be. So that plant behind you that you guys, that's a vetiver grass. It's an amazing grass. So we went over the science and how that particular plant is a erosion control. It can go down to 13 meters.
Is it a water filter?
Roots, yeah.
Yeah, the root systems
Yes.
will go like 30 feet down.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cliffs from falling.
Mhm.
Exactly. That's where
They're
I learned
actually
about
they're
it.
going to be planting it when they do the beach renourishment project. They're going to be planting
That's
it
the
over
best
there
one.
on
Nice.
a poly too.
I saw
Nice.
something about how they planted it in around some pond that was kind of stale water or it was bad water or something.
Stagnant water.
Yeah, the
It
pond on
started
the,
to-
the other side of the island. They planted it
Wow,
by
look
the.
at those
Leah
two.
pond?
There's one right next to it.
Oh, look at that one! There you go.
That's more.
I'm just coming off a fast, so
Oh,
thank
perfect.
you.
Yeah, that's
No
more
idea.
like the production we had in
Juicing the
this
last
garden.
3 days, and I just ate some solids today.
What about that one right there? Is that too small?
They're too
No, there's a
Those
little
will get bigger.
But yeah, that's a typical size of the eggplant we pull out of the garden. We had tons. The UH purple long and the UH green long.
Oh, sure, thanks.
They're
Awesome.
amazing, amazing.
Now you can make a full stir fry with that.
Yeah.
Wait, you gotta take some lemon. Oh, you got lemongrass.
You guys know that's farming.
Yeah, I know, Dad.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Replant all this. It's inspiring me to go back and replant all the stuff that have kind of died during the session.
The eggplant.
Yeah. So
Sauteed in the.
in this, they're amazing, amazing how much flowers and pollination. Like we not only have honeybees in this garden, but let's see if I can find one. We have leafcutter bees. They're smaller, and they're also exceptional pollinators in our garden, like this one right here.
Oh yeah.
Exceptional.
You get bumblebees in here? Oh, sorry, not bumblebees.
The carpenter bees. We haven't gotten carpenter bees up here too much, just because we don't have big open flowers other than the pumpkins. The pumpkins are the ones that right now have been bringing in a small amount. Once the lilikoi, which has been planted along that fence line, take off, that'll be our big carpenter bee.
Where's
Such as normal. There's we planted them next to the chain link fence.
Awesome.
So all these
That'll be
peppers,
really pretty.
there might be a handful that are spicy peppers, but they're all bell peppers.
Oh, nice.
Longish ones.
Yeah.
That might be the spicy one, or
Yeah.
we did have an Anaheim's random one
that could
survive,
be an
so it could be an
It
Anaheim.
could be that.
That looks like a baby.
But
banana.
so in this spot, this one has changed significantly.
Look at this.
We had a huge.
You want to talk about infestation?
Oh yeah. So it's funny you talk about that infestation. So that kale crop right there at the beginning was a useful utilization of the kale, and then we let it turn into a trap crop.
Sacrificial crop.
Yeah. Everything can go to that one and
Gotcha.
kill that.
Good
That's
idea.
completely
That's a
fine.
great idea.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to eat,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Here, you can have that.
yeah.
Here's the
So
right way from that one.
so inside this one, we used to have these huge. You can see some of the stumps left over.
that's right.
We had borage. I have never seen borage get this big.
Really?
It was unbelievable. The borage plant was just
Oh my god.
massive. So we planted the peppers before we ever planted the borage, and we had also green beans or lima beans on this side, and the borage grew after, and it just took over this whole thing. These pepper plants are actually amazing looking now. Before they were just one little stick. But the borage grew so big, and the stalks that came up that had just hundreds of their little blue edible flowers were loaded with bees. Borage is definitely a very bee-friendly plant.
These were the trees that were hidden.
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
was
We
gonna
had a
say,
lot
I used to
of
grow borage and, yeah.
monarch and haloconidae, which
Right.
have opalescent underneath. Yeah.
Literally 4 bags.
This is a baby one right here.
Oh.
You know, like the comfrey that we have in the back of those ones right there? It's a relative. Little tiny.
She made mimosas out of
They
it.
hang upside down. They can go in salad. We made a.
Almost indistinguishable.
We made a. Yeah. Oh, it was massive. It was massive. These were
It's
huge.
kind of hard to pull out too. Like I feel like I've pulled
Yeah, we pulled some of them out, but then there's some that survived, and you know what? That's completely fine because the decomposers will break that down, and it's just a column of compost for the next plant to come and
This
take.
bee has like some red pollen on it.
So the red pollen is from the tulsi tree, which is that basil right
You guys
there.
see that? There's
Yeah.
a bee right there.
Oh yeah.
It's got
We
red
planted tons of
pollen.
basil up in here. We have every different basil you can.
Basketed up
And
big
then
time.
basil, I
But,
noticed, has
so
really
these
white.
one,
Well, it's funny.
two,
Tulsi is a
three
basil,
trees
but
right in
the
front of us.
Genovese basil has white
Those
pollen.
were over here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
completely covered
That's
by
crazy.
everything. I didn't even
Never
know
seen
that
that before.
existed. So this one over there is a Valencia.
Stop moving.
You guys are all over the place. That's cool. You can stick your hand. He was doing it too. You stick your hand and they'll crawl all over your hand.
Yep. He's fearless.
Yeah.
And then on that
Well,
one
it's
over
like you
there
said,
is
they're the last thing they want to do.
Oh, when they're away from the hive is when they're their most docile. Yeah.
So we're trying to
Went to the
do
beehives up to the sea
outskirts, kind of a border of the big windbreak productive thing. So we have the vetiver grass going along, holding that berm in, and then we have the fruit trees that'll grow up, produce fruit, block some wind, so that we have our main crop garden.
Yeah.
Very, very nice.
There's no guy from the Big Island.
These bell peppers, we had a little bit of a harvest in the very beginning. Some of the best tasting bell peppers in the world.
Yeah, they're starting now.
Yeah.
Lots on them.
So in this garden, the kids got to eat a lot
Yeah,
of different
definitely.
places. We did tons of carrots. This before we planted anything on it. This one irrigation line was this whole thing was a row of carrots, and they got to pull out tons. And I don't know what's with kids and carrots, but kids and carrots, they're just they love carrots. If they could, I bet you they'd pull carrots all day.
You know,
It was so much cooler. We were at that.
Exactly. The more challenging too sometimes. I'd have the kids that are just like, oh, that carrot's too in there, let's find another. And the other kids are just like,
yeah,
I
that
want
might have been
that
the
carrot.
same
I'm like, get that
complex.
carrot out.
Yeah.
And they're digging down
And
as far as
there's,
they possibly can to not break it and pull the carrot out.
Learning to be gentle.
Yeah, this
Or not.
this garden
really
was definitely
took me off
heavy
the list.
emphasis
It's
on
just- Well, I had a
nutrition.
job in town, so
I actually did have a really good
yeah.
day. It
But
was just so
mostly-
fortuitous
and the traffic wasn't
where
even that
the
bad
math
back then.
class came out for the
But,
whole day. And it was actually the day that we were laying out
tourists drove me
irrigation
nuts.
lines.
Like,
Yeah.
the grocery
So we did all the
stores,
math
like,
for the
around
irrigation
and-
side, which is great.
Working time.
So we have a hard line
I mean,
to
you
go
think
under.
I
Higher
try
tolerance.
to get away from it,
Yeah.
but
Conserve
yeah,
water,
I'm
not to
just-
make sure it's not
Special
toxic, but
person.
hold the water once it gets in.
Constantly
Um,
dealing with that.
Over here we have the banana circle.
Yeah.
Is what it's,
All this rain
I've adopted it as.
Is that what you've named it? Or?
That's what the design is for bananas. You plant bananas on the outskirts, and their roots will go down into the mulch pit. But
Yeah, that'll
Yeah,
slow it
listen
down
to
a
this.
lot.
This is
Yeah.
an interesting concept.
yeah,
about
so
this.
this is it's called the banana circle, is how I was told it, but I'm utilizing it in a different way. So it's just a mulch pit. Every weed, everything that when we pull from one place, we throw in the center of it, and it slowly breaks down into the inside of it. And the plants you plant on the outskirts, and their roots eventually will go down and meet this nutrition that's just all inside there, and the amount of water that's held in there for whenever anything happens. But we planted all of our melons in here, and some of the watermelon plant is still alive. And they make just little tiny watermelons periodically, but I think the fruit flies found where they were this year, so I don't think any of these will survive anymore. But this whole thing was covered in small little cantaloupes. None of those ever made it past maybe a golf ball size, just because the fruit flies they wipe that one out instantly. But the watermelon that was inside here, we had tons of them. I want to say we at least got to harvest 10 watermelons from 2 watermelon plants. Wow. And they were the just deepest red, flavorful watermelon you can.
Oh man, that sounds so good, right?
Yeah, it really
sounds
does.
great.
Now, if you can do it here, I know I can do it.
Oh, you definitely could do it up at your place, yeah. But this garden had so much potential for education, and we've definitely established a lot. Now, there's a lot of kids. I have some really cute letters that they wrote me up at this school garden. Yeah, so everyone that's left the garden has all talked about how they want to develop one at their place, even if they didn't have an area to.
That's so important.
On the other side of this berm was trying to do my best to get to this year, but there's huge contour lines on that side that we made, and there's the swales being formed on that side. We could walk around, actually walk inside that side if you'd like. It was covered in tall grass, and we cleared it actually down to bare soil, but we had a big rain that allowed all the seeds to grow back.
Nice.
But that side is to be turned into a food forest, is what my design was for that side. And we plant all the trees on the swale berm,
I wish
and
I
we
could
would turn this
stay
side
and
into a
do a lot of these
non-irrigation side as an experiment. We do a lot of
He's just got so many good ideas.
Yeah, he
water
does.
practices. So the swale
Oh, hopefully we'll find somebody that
large amounts.
can share his
I have
vision.
a friend who applied that has been working up at Lahaina Intermediate for the last
Oh,
couple of years.
Bradley?
Bradley,
Yeah, I invited him on this tour today. Yeah, I have his resume. He's probably a good candidate.
Yeah, he really cares about
Buried in the
that
ground.
kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you can make there's so many different experiments online that people have made their own OEMs.
So you guys have a couple candidates?
Yeah, we do.
Don't have any nitrogen nodules on it, but this is a nitrogen fixer that's just recently became invasive in Hawaii. But it's a beneficial invasive because it creates nitrogen and you just cut it down and let it grow. But we also have these other ones. This one, I just call it sticky weed. I can't ever remember the scientific name of it. But these ones are mostly found in areas that have hard soil because they make a carrot. And what that carrot does is that carrot breaks up the hard soil. Just like we cut most of the amaranth out yesterday, but the amaranth also is it's a decompressor of the soil. It decompacts everything. Not to mention, we talked about their somewhat of their elemental profile. Amaranth, just for one, pulls up large amounts of magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, and a handful of other different ones. Each plant that's a weed does a similar thing. Fortunately, we don't have blessed milk thistle down here, but blessed milk thistle is a huge potassium and magnesium. You could take that and put it into your compost, and you'd have a richer compost because of it. Yeah. So it's nice to get across to the kids that just because someone else calls it a weed doesn't mean it doesn't have a place.
Is that mallow right there?
Yeah, that one's mallow, yeah. Which is really odd because mallow is a very water-thirsty plant, so there must be some sort of something. But yeah, it's cool getting across that everything has a utilization and a purpose. Nothing doesn't have a purpose.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow the cause and effect with this. So one of these weeds, like that one that breaks up the soil, let's say, grows here because the soil is hard?
Yes.
It's the only thing that can.
Yeah. So
Okay.
amaranth, they have really small, tiny seeds, and I've tried planting. I have the hardest time getting them to go.
Okay.
When they fall right next to where they were grown, they have no problem growing. And so some things like will transpire, like this one, most weeds are opportunistic and they'll take whatever they can get. So this one, if it was stuck to my leg and we went to like, say Hana, it would grow in Hana, even though Hana has, say, a spot that has less compacted soil, it would totally grow there.
Right.
But their purpose is to break up soil.
Okay.
And they also, not to mention that the carrot-like root that they have not only breaks up the soil, but also stores a ton of water.
Okay.
That's why they can grow so easily on this
So
side. They
then-
can outcompete other things.
Okay, so then my question with that competition,
Yeah.
opportunisticness. So now it's broken up the soil, so something else can come
Something else
along,
can come in. Yeah.
which does not behoove that plant.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, so this is just everything working together.
Yeah. So that's why
Okay.
when I took my permaculture course, they were talking about how they're medics. They're the medics of the soil. They're there because something is not in order in your soil. The plants that we grow, the plants that we eat, those are plants that are apex. They're the things that require pristine conditions. That's why they grow so well in that, like heavy food, heavy compost, heavy fertilization, heavy watering. That's why they grow. Is because if you took a carrot and threw it in this spot, you'd have to baby it to get it to grow. Where this thing is like, drop me here, I'll be fine. And so that was a really fun class because we have a ulu tree that's over there, and that tree we didn't pull any weeds from. I told them just constantly cut it back, just cut the weeds back, and we'll just leave it here because the weeds will continue to go. And doing that is going to make that soil way better than it would be if we removed it all and just like mulch, because not only is it living, it brings living life to the soil, but it's recycling all the nutrients that plant can pull up that other plants can't. Like the breadfruit tree can pull it up only if it's available, where these plants can make it available. So it's very weeds are awesome. I love them. There's some weeds I don't like the kikuyu grass. I could deal without that one. That would be great not to have that one. But most of these plants have a particular purpose. No one knows it yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I took a weed science class in college, and the description of a weed is a noxious plant that is difficult to remove and is opportunistic, that can adequately be established in harsh conditions. This is a weed, like the technical definition of it. And then he had a philosophical one, which was a weed is a plant that is just misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely the case because in teaching sustainable education or sustainable gardening or agriculture to the kids, that's also a huge standpoint. Because,
Right.
I mean, we could come out here and spray with Roundup. It'll kill that plant, but it also kill whatever's in the soil right there, and that soil's still going to stay hard. I mean, you can come out here and till it, but how long does that take you? How much energy does that require? And it still doesn't make the nutrients available in that soil that that plant does. So it's figuring out how to utilize and compromise and live with what's there to make it work. There's, yeah. I think that actually has medicinal properties to it. I had to look it up because there's a certain preparation on how to do it. But everything, like, I don't know if we have...
Kiave.
Well, there's Kiave right there. I'm trying to think, I can't remember the name of it right now. I want to say Uluhe, but it's the one I gave you for your third.
Uluhe, yeah.
No, Uluhe is the fern.
Oh, the fern.
Uhaloa. Uhaloa. It's a... most people would think it's a weed, but it's actually a Hawaiian endemic medicine. And it's probably the best sore throat medicine you'll ever find. It grows all over the west side. They've got soft, fuzzy shaped leaves. And you take the root out and you just peel it back and you chew the bark. It's like an aspirin kind of.
This is it.
Yeah, that's right there, Uhaloa.
Okay, yeah.
And that one, that's a pioneering weed. Yeah. It's a pioneering weed.
Yeah, I was trying to get rid of my sore throat, nothing was working, and then he came home, took the stuff off the outside of the root, and I chew it. It tasted horrible at first.
You just chewed it raw.
Just chew it and then kind of let the juices sink down, and immediate relief.
Yeah, so the root, you just take it and you peel back the bark. You can use a knife or whatever, but you take the bark off. You wash it first, of course, and you can chew this. It's the best sore throat medicine, and it's free.
What's in it?
There's really not much scientific studies done it, but in the La'aulapa'au it has. It doesn't tell you the medical, like the chemical composition, but it definitely is.
It helps.
It helps a lot.
How would they
Yeah.
know to just dig that plant up and peel the roots bark off?
Maybe they grew it on purpose.
In the process of finding out.
Experimented over the years.
Or you think about
scientists
guidance.
You know?
cultures have been established over thousands of years, so you definitely, if there's something cultural that works, it's because they've done it for however many years. They did the trial and error. They did the real scientific study there, not hypotheticals. So
You honor those people.
yeah.